Okay, I'm back for chapter 6, no, accounting for corporations. So here we are going to discuss how are we going to issue or how are we going to record, no, the issuance of share capital or kung paano tayo magre-record under the capital account for corporation. So syempre sa sole proprietorship, it's just easy as debit cash, credit capital for cash. For non-cash assets, debit non-cash asset, credit capital account. Same as with partnership. So ganun lang siya kadali. But for corporation, so medyo iba, no? Siya. So, okay. So when we say share capital, no, or shareholders equity, there are two components, no? Yung equity or capital account. So we have the share capital and the retained earnings. Kaya nga on the next chapter, we will be discussing on the retained earnings. So first is we have to discuss for the share capital. So when we share capital, it reflects the amount of resources received by a corporation as a result of investment by shareholders, donation, and other capital. When we say retained earnings naman, these are the accumulated profits and losses. No? It is the amount accumulated, capital accumulated, and retained through the profitable operations of the business. So as you can see on 6-3, ito yung sample ng isang shareholders equity. So may share capital. Share capital could be preference share, ordinary share, and share premium. Then we have retained earnings for the total shareholders equity. When we say share capital, it is a share to be subscribed and paid or secured to be paid by the shareholders either in money, property, or services at the time of organization of the corporation or afterwards, no? Upon which it is to conduct its operation. So when we say legal capital, these are the capital contributed by shareholders come from the sale of shares of stocks. The shares of stocks are issued are generally referred to share capital. Legal capital is the portion of the contributed capital or the minimum amount of paid-in capital which must remain in the corporation for the protection of corporate creditors. The amount of legal capital is determined as follows. In case of par value shares, legal capital is the aggregate par value of all issued and subscribed share. Pag no par, the legal capital is the total consideration received by the corporation for the issuance of shares. Pag sinabi naman natin share premium, let's say yan naman yung excess portion, no, ng payment dun sa binayarang capital. Or this is the portion of the paid-in capital representing amounts paid by shareholders in excess of par. Let's say merong 100 ang par value. Then nag-issue tayo ng 10 shares. So automatically, ang value ng shares is 10 times 100. Magkano yun? 10 times 100, 1,000. Diba? Pero kung ang binayaran ng shareholders is 1,200 for an instance, there is an excess of 200. So that's share premium. Okay? Now, share capital is divided into transferable shares of stocks. A share of stocks represents the interest or right of a shareholders in a corporation as evidenced by a certificate of stock. So yan yung share stocks, no? Kapag nag-own ka ng 10 stock ng Jollibee, meron kang certificate of stock, di ba? Okay? Now, so what are the two types of shares? The ordinary shares and preference shares. So when we say ordinary shares, this share represent the basic ownership of a corporation. So it must be an ordinary because ordinary shares are the entities, residual entities. So ibig sabihin isang klase lang yan. So kung ano natanggap ng isa, natanggap ng lahat. When we say preference naman, preference shares, there are special benefits, no, as to the receipt of dividends. Normally, they are the one preferred sa dividends. Kaya nga sila preference shares. And normally, mas mahal ang preference shares as to compare with the ordinary shares. Okay? What are the terms related, no, sa pag-i-issue ng shares, no? Number one is the authorized share capital. So when we say authorized share capital, these are the number of shares indicates the maximum number of shares of the corporation can be issued. So halimbawa, 10,000 shares at par value of 100. Multiply ko times 100. Okay, so 1 million yun. No? Tama, 1 million. So, ibig sabihin, ang authorized, no, or maximum number of shares that can be issued of this, let's say, ABC Corporation is 10,000 with a par value of 100. So, ibig sabihin, hindi sila pwedeng mag-issue ng more than 10,000. Okay? Are we clear? So, when we say issued share capital, let's say out of the 10,000, nabili na yung 9,000. So, that's the issued share capital. Pag sinabi naman nating subscribe share capital, may mga instances kasi na na-issue na natin, let's say, yung 6,000. So, meron pang 4,000. Merong mga instances na yung mga stockholders, magsusubscribe lang sila ng, let's say, 1,000. And that out of 1,000, 50% of that was paid pa lang. Kaya may tinatawag tayong subscribe. Sinubscribe nila yung buo, kaya lang hindi pa tapos nilang bayaran. Okay? So, outstanding shares. So, when we say outstanding shares, these are shares na which are in the hands of the shareholders. The number of outstanding shares will equal to the difference between the issued shares and the treasury shares. Kasi merong mga instance na naka-issue na ng 9,000. Pero meron tayong treasury shares o yung mga bumalik na shares na 1,000. So 8,000 lang yung outstanding. Treasury stocks or treasury shares, these are issued shares acquired by the corporation but not retired and are therefore awaiting to be reissued. Okay? So, next. Accounting for issuance of shares. So, merong with par and without par or no par. Pagka with par, syempre, i-multiply mo siya sa par value. Pag wala, i-multiply mo siya sa stated value or kung ano yung na-receive mo na na kapalit ng shares kasi ang mga considerations na pwedeng ipalit sa shares are cash, of course, tangible or intangible properties, labor performed, pwedeng previously incurred indebtedness, amount transferred from unrestricted retained earnings, pwedeng outstanding shares, etc. Nandiyan yan sa page 6-5. Okay. So para mas maintindihan na natin, no? Let's move on page 6-6 on the problem or the illustration. Share issuances for cash. Pag nag-share ng issuance for cash, so issuing share capital at par. Pag may par value, okay, Narson Holdings is authorized to issue 1 million pesos ordinary shares divided into 10,000 shares with, parang ito example ko kanina, with a par value of 100 per share. So, ibig sabihin, yan yung authorized na pwede natin i-issue as much as we want. Then, the diversified corporation issued on a cash basis 2,000 shares at par. At par mo lang siya in-issue. So, you just have to debit cash. So, 2,000 times 100, that's 200,000. And then credit ordinary shares. So, para rin gano'n, no? Debit cash, credit capital. Kaya lang this time, it's under the share. Tapos may shares of stocks ka na nakapangalan kung sino yung bumili. Paano kung above par? Pag above par, yun, nagkakaroon ng share premium. Kasi in excess of par. Okay, suppose it was sold, 2,000 were sold at 150. So, merong excess, no, na 50. So, that's 50 pesos times 2,000, it's 100. So, that debit to cash to 300, and then credit ordinary shares and share premium at 100. So, ganyan, madali kapag with par, saka cash. In case of non-cash naman, kasi kunin mo lang din yung fair market value. In case of labor, kunin mo yung cost of labor. Okay? So, parang ganun din siya sa partnership class. No? Ang kaibahan nga lang, hindi mo siya sa capital account, kundi sa share. What kind of share? Paano kung without par value? If without par value, okay, Morningstar Travel is a domestic corporation engaged in the business of organizing tour packages for Asian and European visitors to the Philippines. The entity, which is located at J. Bocobo Street, Manila, has two classes of share, preference shares and no par ordinary shares. 5,000 ordinary shares were issued for 85,000. So course, walang stated value. So, kung magkano yung na-receive mo? So, debit cash, 85,000 and credit ordinary shares. Paano kung may stated value? Okay. 5,000 at 25% daw. Pero, ang may stated value tayo na 20 pesos. So, pwede mo siyang i-record na cash and then yung una na tulad ng ginawa natin kung magkano yung na-receive natin. Pero mas appropriate na dahil may stated value na siya, kunin mo yung excess para rin siyang par value, no? In excess of stated value, share premium. So ito yung susundin natin yung pangalawa. So debit cash, 125. Credit ordinary shares, 100,000. And credit share premium, 25,000. For you to understand, let's try to illustrate on problem number 1. Okay. So we are now going to solve problem 1, no? On page 6 dash. Problem 1 on 6-47. Okay, let's try to solve. I'll read the problem. No, you may read it silently. Then let's try to answer. ROA Corporation's articles authorize the issuance of 100,000 ordinary shares. ROA sold the following ordinary shares during 2018. We are required to prepare a journal entries to record its issuances, assuming the following. Okay, on number 1, the ordinary shares has a stated value of 100,000 par value. Okay, number 1, sold 1,000 shares for 100,000. So 100 daw ang par value niya. So ibig sabihin, this was sold at par. Tama? So debit cash, 100,000. And then ordinary shares, 100,000. So paano na kayo 100,000? Yun yung na-receive natin, di ba, cash? And may par value siya. So 100 times 1,000, it's 100,000. Then on July 10, sold 5,000 shares at 630. So we received cash for 630. Pero may par value siya, tama? So ibig sabihin, 5,000 times 100. So that's 500,000. So in excess of par, ang tawag natin ay share premium. So if we're going to multiply pa yon, 5,000. O kunin mo na lang siya. Yung difference, 130,000. Then, on November 5, sold 7,500 shares at 1,050,000. So debit cash for 1,050,000. Ay, kulang ng 0. And then, credit, 75 times 100. 750. Then get the excess. 1 million minus 750. So that's 300 share premium. Okay. Then next, on number 2, the ordinary shares is stated 10 pesos stated value. Okay. Pagka ganyan, stated value niya is, it should be, how are we going to do that? Okay. Cash, 100,000. Oh, wait lang. Wala. Okay. Okay. Then, may stated value siya. Di ba? I-multiply natin sa stated value. 1,000 times 1,000 times 10. So, magkakaroon tayo ngayon ng share premium na magkano? 90,000. Then next, 630,000. 5,000 shares. So 5,000 times 10 as a stated value. So that's 50,000. So how much will be the share premium? Of course, it's 630 minus 50,000. Paano kapag ito, kasunod? Wala pa pala. Dito pa lang tayo. 7.5. So 1,050,000. 7.5 multiplied by the stated value. Then your share premium will be okay, and then next, number 3, the ordinary shares has no stated par value. If that is the case, pag no stated value, all you need to do is just to get how much you receive. 100,000. 630,000. And 1,050,000. Okay, so that's it. So next, let's try to do problem 4. Okay. Problem 4. Fernando Corporation is authorized to issue 400,000 shares of 85 par value. Journalize the following transactions. Okay, sold 75,000 shares at 86 per share, received cash. So 75,000 times 86. So your cash received was 6,450. Then your ordinary shares is, magkano ba ang par value niya? 85. So 75 times 85. Yan. And of course, the difference will be 75, I believe. Kasi 1 peso yan. Okay? Next, on Feb 27, issued 21,000 shares of ordinary shares in exchange for a land with a fair market value of 920. So get the fair market value. In the absence of fair market value, book value. Okay. And then the building is 1,087,500. Then ordinary shares is 21,500 times 85. 1,827. Okay. Then get the difference. That's your share premium, if there is any. Okay, so that's 180,000. Then next, 28,000 shares at 86.50 received cash. Debit cash, 28,000 times 86.5. And then ordinary shares is 28,000 times 85. Any difference will be now be share premium. Okay, so take time to absorb my discussion. Yan, answer. Okay. Try to solve problem 5, no? And problem 6, the answer is given here. Okay? So next. Subscribe capital stocks. Okay. So let's go back, no? So before we move on, no? Let's go back. Subscribe capital stock. Subscription of shares on page 6-7. There are times that when a corporation sells its shares directly to investors on a subscription basis. So kaya yung sinabi ko kanina, subscription contract is legally binding contract which provides the number of shares subscribed, the subscription price, and terms of payment. So parang installment basis ng pagbili ng shares. Okay, a subscriber becomes a shareholder kapag nabayaran na niya yung buong subscription. At i-issuehan lang siya ng certificate of stock pag nabayaran niya. Okay, for an instance, warranty on page 6-8. Warranty Auto Shop Incorporated is a quality car care center located at St. Paul Street, San Antonio Village, Makati City. Assume that 5,000 shares at 10 par value ordinary shares of the corporation were sold on subscription at 12 pesos per share. To Ashley Langda. Subscription installment of 24,036 will be due on September 16 and 30. So let's record. 5,000 at 12, so that's 60,000. So debit subscription receivable of 60,000. Credit subscribe ordinary shares 50,000. So at par, and then share premium at 10,000. Then on September 16 and September 30, pag magbabayad na ng subscription, debit cash, credit subscription receivable, 24,000. Then debit cash, credit subscription receivable, 36,000. To record the final installment. Pagbayad na lahat, i-debit mo lang yung subscribe ordinary shares and then credit mo ordinary shares. Then that's the time that you record the issuance of stock certificate. Okay? So let's try, no? Problem 10, I think. Okay, so problem 10. Problem 10. Gabayan Incorporated has been authorized to issue 125,000 shares of 10 par ordinary shares. The following 2019 transactions relate to the initial issuance of Gabayan share. Gabayan sold subscription for 25,000 shares. The shares have a subscription price of 15 pesos per share. 1/3 of subscription price was received as a down payment. Okay, so may na-receive daw na down payment. So let's write a record. 1/3 nung subscription. So 25. Dito na natin. Debit cash na 25,000 times magkano subscribe? 15 times 1/3. So that's 125,000. At ang subscription receivable ay 25,000 shares multiplied by 15 times 2/3. Diba? 2/3 yung receivable. 1/3 na cash, na-receive ng cash. So for a total of 375,000. If you can compute 300, pagka kinalculate nyo yan, 25,000 times 15 pesos per share, that's 375. Pero ang subscribe ordinary shares lang ay i-record mo at par. Okay? So 25,000 times 10 pesos. And of course, share premium will be the difference. So again, walang ordinary share na i-credit hanggat hindi na babayaran ng buo. Okay, so that's it. Next. Gabayan, on Feb 15, Gabayan sold 10,000 shares. Record mo lang, 10,000 shares at 180. 180,000 cash. Then, ilan daw? 10,000 shares times 10. Then the difference will be share. I hope you can still follow. Then, of course, next is March 1, an installment amounting to 1/3 of the subscription price was received. So, naka-receive daw tayo ng subscription price, 1/3. Yan din yun yung 1/3 kanina, 125. Then, credit subscription receivables. Then Gabayan exchanged 200 shares of stocks for a new two-way radio systems having a fair market value of 3,800. So ito, nung time na in-organize siya, nagkaroon tayo ng exchange. So, ang tawag natin doon is organization expense. So, that is 3,800. For how much? Or for how many shares? 200 at 10 pesos. So, that's 2,000. So, merong share premium na 1,800. Then next, no, on April 1, you receive the final 1/3. Final 1/3 is 125. Then, sumobra ng 0. And this is the only time, no? So, ang subscribe ordinary shares mo, so bayad na yung buong 375, no? So, wala na to, mas-zero out na siya. Ngayon, pwede mo na siyang i-transfer into subscribe. Yung subscribe ordinary shares, magiging ordinary shares na. Okay, so that's subscription of shares. Okay? So I hope you can follow. Then next, no? Before I end the discussion, meron pa akong isang i-discuss, yung treasury shares before we solve problem 14. Treasury shares, balikan natin, 6-17. Okay, 6-17 treasury stocks. When we say treasury shares, these are shares of stocks which have been issued and fully paid for but subsequently reacquired. Na-reacquire natin. So, anong gagawin if there are treasury shares, no? Pag nagkaroon ng treasury shares, let's move on the illustration. Plantation Eco Resort is a world-class destination in Indang, Cavite. The operations have been successful. To consolidate control over the enterprise and thus avoid a corporate takeover by outsiders, the board of directors decided to minimize outstanding shares by purchasing 1,500 shares with a par value of 1,000 for 2,000 pesos. The entry will be, okay. So ulitin, tinake over nila, no? Pinurchase nila yung 1,500 shares, no? Par value niya is 1,000, binili nila at 2,000. So 1,500 times 2,000, it's 3 million. Debit 3 million and credit cash 3 million. Okay, so nasundan? 1,500,000 times 2 million, that's 2,000, it's 3 million. So binili nila, ni-reacquire nila yung shares. Now, after some time, pwede nilang i-reissue ulit yun, no? So, assume that the treasury shares were subsequently reissued at cost. So, kung at cost, edi-debit cash ka lang credit treasury shares. So, yung ordinary shares na na-issue natin, hindi nagagalaw yun, nandun lang yan. Kasi nga, mamaya natin siya i-close kung talagang hindi na mabibenta yung treasury shares. Above cost, kung binenta natin siya at more than 3 million. So, debit cash 3,750 for an instance if it is issued at 2,700. Treasury stocks 3 million and then may share premium. Paano kung below? I-debit mo ngayon siya sa retained earnings. Okay? Then retirement. Later na natin pag-usapan yung retirement. Let's try to solve problem 14. So this will be the ending of my discussion for tonight or for this. Okay. So let's read the problem. On January 1, Bulani Corporation had the following balances. It's in its shareholder. Ordinary shares, 5 at par. Share premium ordinary, retained earnings. On March 28, the corporation purchased 10,000 shares at as a treasury stock at 15 per share. So what are we going to do? Ikakopy ko na lang, ha? Bago yan. Sabi niya dito, before that, requirements, so number 1, calculate the number of shares issued and the number of shares outstanding on January 1, March 31, June 30, and September 30, assuming no other equity transactions occurred, and then prepare journal entries. And why would a corporation buy its own shares of stock? No? Bakit nga ba? So, kaya binibili, no, ng sarili. Sagutin ko na yung number 2. The reason kaya binibili niya, kasi meron pang way na i-resolve i-resell, ibenta ulit niya, no? Kesa naman totally mag-retire yung stocks. So, binibili na lang niya with a hope na mabibenta pa niya yung shares of stocks na yun. Kasi kapag nag-retire yun, mababawas din sa outstanding shares, no? So, para hindi na maibawas. Okay, so, on January 1, so, ilan yan? 500,000 divided by 5. So, ilang shares yan? 500,000 divided by 5. So, that's 100. Kaya ang sagot ko dyan kan ay, ano yun? Ito yun actually. Kopyahin ko na ha. Okay. So, na merong 100,000 shares issued and outstanding. On March 28, the corporation purchased 10,000 shares as a treasury stocks. So, merong 100 shares issued, pero dahil treasury na siya, mababawas siya sa outstanding. No? Hindi na siya outstanding, pero issued pa rin yun. Issued siya in a term na hawak mo nga lang siya. Then on April 10, sold 4,000 treasury shares. So, yung 4,000 na sold natin. So, 100,000 shares pa rin issued, pero ang outstanding na ay 94,000 kasi we reissued it. And July 5, 2,000, so it became 96,000. So again, so prepare journal entry. On March 28, how are we going to journalize? Treasury share. Magkano natin siyang nakuha? 15,000. Ay, sorry, 15 pesos. 10,000 times 15. Credit cash for 150. And then on April 30, April 30, binenta natin, no? Yung shares na yan, yung 10,000 at 14 pesos. So at a loss siya, no? So 4,000 kasi binili natin ng 15, binenta lang natin at 14. So ang cost nung 4,000 times 15 ay 60,000. So meron tayong loss na 4,000 which will be offset to retained earnings. And then on July 5, binenta naman natin ng mas higher. So that's 2,000 shares times 16. Pero ang treasury shares lang talaga is 2,000 times 15. So meron tayong share premium na 2,000. Okay. So I hope you understand, and if you cannot understand, pwede mo naman siyang panoorin ulit, so at least you can understand. Then please solve the remaining problems. So babalikan ko pa ito ng isang pasada for other concerns such as yung donations, yung payable, yung iba-ibang problems, no? Ibibigay ko din yung answer sa inyo. I-upload ko sa ating classroom. Okay, then by next week, we will be discussing chapter 7. So that's all for tonight. So I hope you learned from my discussion. So thank you and good night.